Hello and welcome to the Sleep Education Pack. The Sleep Education Pack comprises 17 slides, and the final slide you will find the sleep meditation. Thank you so much for taking part, and I really do hope that this education, with the tips included and the meditation, will really help for you to achieve much better sleep. In this session, we will learn more about why we need to sleep. We will look at what happens during our sleep. And finally, we will explore some helpful strategies for improving sleep. Sleep deprivation impacts on both our brains and our bodies. It can lead to an increase in blood pressure when we don't get enough sleep. This in turn increases the risk of heart attacks, and it alters our metabolic function, which can lead to alterations in insulin resistance, leading to type 2 diabetes. It can lower your immune system and cause memory problems. It also causes difficulties with concentration and lowers our mood. It can also lead to weight gain, and this is because during sleep there are a number of hormones which are regulated, but two in particular which are responsible for what we eat and how hungry we feel are two hormones called leptin and ghrelin. Leptin signals to our bodies or to our brains when we are full after eating, and ghrelin senses or triggers our sense of hunger. So when they become deregulated, we tend to feel more hungry, and when we do eat, we tend to eat more, of course leading to weight gain. Prevalence of sleep disorders. It has been reported that at least 40% of patients with long COVID have moderate to severe sleep difficulties. And sleep disturbances are the most reported long COVID symptom. It's interesting to know that approximately 10% of the worldwide population also suffer with insomnia. Sleep difficulties is very common. Post-COVID infection and sleep. Why this is more prevalent following COVID infection still remains unclear. It is completely normal to sleep more during infection, and for some it might be that it's just difficult to get back into a normal sleep routine afterwards. We also know that some medications cause sleep disturbances, and it might be worth having a word with your GP if this is the case. Also, being indoors more and not being exposed to that natural daylight can cause a disruption to our circadian rhythm or body clock. Sleep disturbances can also be caused by having a low mood and anxiety, which is quite common after COVID infection. But if you are concerned at all, please do go and speak to your GP. There are also some helpline numbers at the end of this session. Types of sleep difficulties. Sleep difficulties can take the form of delayed sleep onset. In an ideal world, we should be aiming to fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes of going to bed at night. But for some people, it can take much longer. We might also wake up frequently during the night and then struggle to fall asleep again afterwards. You might also wake up too early in the morning. So, for example, if you wanted to if you set the alarm clock for 7 o'clock in the morning, you might find that you're waking up from 5 o'clock onwards. Of course, you might struggle with all three of these things at any one time. To give a brief overview of what happens when we go to sleep, I thought it'd be interesting to look at sleep cycles. Here on this picture in the bottom right hand corner you can see a hypnogram, and this shows a typical night sleep. So when we fall asleep originally, we go into non-REM stage 1 sleep, which is a light sleep. Then we cycle into non-REM stage 2 sleep, which is a deeper sleep. And then we go into non-REM stage 3, which is our deep sleep. We might have 20 minutes or 40 minutes or so in this first stage of deep sleep, but then we cycle back up to non-REM stage 2 sleep, non-REM stage 1, and when we've been asleep around 90 minutes, we have our first stage of REM sleep, which is a rapid eye movement sleep, which predominantly we do most of our dreaming. We then cycle back into non-REM stage 1, stage 2, back into deep sleep, and back up again to stage 2, stage 1, REM sleep. And we cycle throughout the night like this, but the architecture of our sleep changes over the night. So in the first half of the night, we tend to get more deep sleep, and in the second half of the night, we get more REM sleep or dream sleep. A typical sleep cycle lasts around 90 minutes. I thought it would be really interesting for people to understand what actually controls sleep. There's really two things. One of them is called adenosine, or we like to call it sleep pressure or sleep drive, because it really is the thing that drives our sleep. Adenosine is a chemical in the brain that builds from the moment you've had a good sleep until we go to bed at night and fall asleep again. It actually is at its richest within the brain after around 16 hours of being awake. And we really do need this to be able to fall asleep properly and sleep through the night. The other thing that controls our sleep is something called the circadian rhythm or the body clock. The body clock actually tells us when we should be feeling alert and awake or when we should be feeling sleepy and tired. It's a bit of a dip in the afternoon between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and most people can report that they actually feel a little bit sleepy during this time. But one big task, if you like, of the circadian rhythm is that it signals to the brain when it should be producing melatonin. Now, melatonin is a hormone that's produced within the brain that actually starts to produce as soon as it goes dark, and it signals to our bodies that it's time to feel sleepy. We don't actually need melatonin to fall asleep, but it's a bit like that starter at the beginning of the race. It tells us ready, steady, go, or it's time to go to sleep or get ready for sleep. Now, the trouble is a lot of people very often miss this cue, and that could be due to bright lights within their home environment, screens, and any sort of device that gives off a blue light can actually diminish the production of melatonin, which means that you miss that cue. So although it's not vital for sleep, it is important, and its importance is the signalling of getting ready for sleep. We're now going to look at sleep hygiene. These are the sort of ideas and suggestions that can help you to get a better night's sleep. So research suggests that having an hour winding down before bed really does help. In that last hour, it can be beneficial to switch off all your technology and make your living space as dim as possible to increase that melatonin production. Try to focus on yourself during this time. It will help you to sleep better, and over time it'll help you to feel much better mentally too. It's also recommended to try to do a hand-eye activity. So the suggestions for adults are things like colouring books or jigsaws, but it's really finding the things that you like to do that's easily to get out in that last hour before bed. It helps to calm the brain and stops intrusive thoughts. It can also be beneficial to take a bath or a shower. For many people, they find this really relaxing. It's also beneficial to look at the bedroom environment itself. The temperature should be around 16 to 18 degrees centigrade or 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really not too hot or too cold. So try to make your bedroom as a place for sleep. For many people working from home these days, bedrooms have turned into makeshift offices, but it's really not helpful for sleep. Also, try and avoid watching TV and gaming or things like that in the bedroom. The bedroom should really be just a place for sleep. It's also helpful to clear your bedrooms of clocks. These are not helpful at all. So actually looking at the clock during the night helps to train the brain to wake up at regular times during the night. And of course, we know that regularly checking the clock at the time helps to keep that anxiety building. People tend to work out how many hours sleep they've got left before they need to get up. It's definitely not helpful to look at clocks all the time or your mobile phone once you're in bed. Things to try include trying to keep to a regular sleep-wake cycle. This means going to bed at a regular time and waking up around the same time every morning. Some people report that they have a lie-in at weekends. This is okay up to around an hour difference, but if we go back to when we talked about what we need for sleep, adenosine, if you think, if I have a lie-in till say 11 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, I might not be ready for sleep until the early hours of Monday morning, which is not helpful for sleep. The other thing that really is, and I can't stress this enough, is trying to get as much natural daylight as you can first thing in the morning. This is quite difficult during the winter months, so bright lights can help as well. But getting around 30 minutes bright natural light first thing in the morning helps to anchor our circadian rhythm in the morning daylight. Avoid looking at bright screens in that last hour before bed. And as we talked about before, melatonin production, we need really to signal to our bodies that it's time to get off to sleep. So looking at blue light, which is given off by technology devices, stimulates the brain into thinking it's still daytime because the blue light mimics sunlight. Of course, there are certain things that we should try and avoid as well. Alcohol. Alcohol actually helps most people to fall asleep much quicker, but unfortunately it disrupts the sleep patterns and it can stop us going through into deep sleep or into dream sleep. And of course, once the alcohol has left the system, many people report that they start to wake up frequently in that second half of the night. So it is better to cut down on alcohol or avoid it completely, particularly before bedtime. Caffeine is a stimulant, so this actually masks the build-up of sleep pressure, and some people are more sensitive to the effects than others. But it's worth bearing in mind that the average cup of coffee or tea for that matter has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours. This means that only half of the chemicals from caffeine have left your body in this time. So people who drink tea and coffee regularly might find that they don't feel as tired because although the adenosine is building, they don't feel the effects of that building, and of course then will struggle to fall asleep. You're much better having fruity teas. Decaf tea and coffee can also be helpful, but just bear in mind it does still contain a level of caffeine, and some people obviously are more susceptible to the effects of it than others. Things which can be helpful to avoid is nicotine. Like caffeine, nicotine is a stimulant which can disrupt sleep. It can also make things such as restless legs much worse. Also, exercise. Although exercise can be good for sleep, it's important that you don't exercise in the last 4 hours before bed. And of course, always check with your clinician before embarking on any high intensity exercise. Final take-home points. So it might be beneficial for you to think about sleep in terms of what you can do to achieve more of it and better quality sleep. But it's really helpful not to go to bed before you are really tired and ready for sleep. You should always be aiming to fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes. If you do not, or you find that you're still lying in bed for some time after you get into bed, get back out of bed and try and do something non-stimulating until you feel tired and ready for sleep again. It can take some time to actually break this sleep cycle, but as well, it might be interesting to think if you had to lie in on a Sunday morning, say till 10 o'clock, you might not be ready for sleep until potentially between 1 and 2 o'clock on Monday morning, which is not helpful if you've got an alarm clock going off around 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. So try not to go to bed until you're really tired. Try to keep to the same sleep-wake cycle throughout the week. It can be really beneficial. So a lot of people ask about naps. Now, we suggest that actually having a well-timed nap, if you're really tired, can be beneficial, but it should not be any longer than 15 to 20 minutes, because anything beyond that, it means that you will start to go into your sleep cycles, and that can really disrupt sleep at night again. It's also helpful not to have a nap close to bedtime. So if you are going to have a little bit of a snooze in the afternoon, try and do this closer to lunchtime, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. As we mentioned on the previous slide, it is really helpful to go to bed when you are tired and ready for sleep. If you don't, and you find that you're awake for much longer than 20 minutes or so, you can have what we call intrusive thoughts. These are thoughts that pop into our heads. They might be just something that you're thinking about that's happening tomorrow, or worrying about something that's going on in your personal life, or something that's happened today. It could be absolutely anything, but they do tend to be quite negative, and this can actually increase our fight and flight responses being activated. So we know that when this happens, cortisol and adrenaline are released by the brain, and they cause our bodies to become on high alert. This is not helpful for sleep, and you will not be able to fall asleep if this happens to you. To stop this happening, it can be really helpful to practice something called sleep meditation. The example that I've included here is something called progressive muscle relaxation, and it works by tensing parts of your body and releasing of tension. You don't actually have to tense the parts of your body as it mentions. It can be as helpful sometimes to just visualize tensing of these muscles. But please give it a go, and over a period of time, this can really help to relax the body and stop those intrusive thoughts and get off to a much better sleep much quicker. Thank you so much for listening to this, and good luck over the next few weeks. Thank you. Bye.